All right, so now we're seeing something here. So let's look at number 3 first. Now you can see it. Now I'm going to give you a moment to just stare at this equation. What do you see? Okay, what do you see? Okay, what do you see? Now I hope you see something that it's really standing out, okay, screaming at you, and that is you see some even numbers. Okay, can you see 2? Can you see 20? Can you see 22? Okay. Now, if you can see that, well, one thing we can do, well, we can at least factor them out, factor the 2 out, okay? And if you say, wait, why? Why would you do that? Do you need to do that? Do you have to do it? Do you have to do this? Or is it better to do this? Then I would say, well, do you want to have a number in front of x squared? Okay. And let me show you what's even more convenient is that you can now divide it by 2 on both sides. So now the 2 on the left is gone. And what is 0 divided by 2? It's still 0. Okay, so just to show you how you can divide it by 2 on both sides. So the 2 is gone, and 0 divided by 2, it's still 0. See? Lovely. And with this lovely scenery, we can just go ahead and say, do the same thing that we did on number 1 and number 2. We'd say, all right, let's go ahead and move the 11 over because we don't really need the 11. Okay, I forgot to write the x. And now we are going to divide the 10 by 2, which is 5, and we add the square of 5, which is 25, and we add 25 on the right-hand side as well. So you've got 36 on the right, which is a nice number. And then on the left, we have x minus 5, and that is squared. And then we will go ahead and take the plus or minus square root of 36. Okay. All right, now, and this is the part where I would say, don't be lazy. You know what square root of 36 is. Square root of 36 is 6. Okay. And then you're going to add the 5 on both sides. So you get 5 on the right. 5 plus or minus 6. Well, what is 5 plus 6? Okay, and what is 5 minus 6? Well, 5 plus 6 is 11. Okay, and 5 minus 6 is -1. So these are your solutions. Okay, these are your solutions. X is 11, and I mean, these are the roots. X is 11, and x equals to -1. Okay, so be very sensitive to numbers. Okay, if you see some even numbers all popping up at the same time, you know, feel free to explore if you can factor out, clean things up, and make your life easier. Okay, and then for number 4, number 4, it's going to be a little bit ugly. Okay, now let's go ahead and move the 5 over first. Okay, because we don't need the 5 anyways on the left. And now, as we did from the last lesson, we always want the x squared to have a coefficient of 1. If it's not 1, we factor out. And we were going to factor the 2 from both. And now that's a critical question, which is, yeah, what is that second term? Like what's, how do you factor 2 out of 3x? That's what you have. Okay. Now, if you are a little bit surprised on why it is 3 halves x, then I will give you a little hint, and that is, if you distribute, do you get the same thing? So it's a little bit of backward thinking. You're like, oh yeah, what times 2 gives you 3? And it's going to be 3 halves. Okay, 3 halves would give you 3 halves times 2 would give you 3. So that's a little bit of reverse thinking to give you the confirmation that you have done this properly. And now you can see where the nightmare comes in. But first, let's go ahead and divide it by 2 on both sides so that you have a cleaner left-hand side to deal with. Yeah, the right-hand side's a fraction, but it's okay. Okay, but now, what we have to do is to divide this number by 2. Okay, now don't be scared. Don't be scared. 3 halves times, well, I mean, divided by 2. 3 halves divided by 2 is the same thing as 3 halves times 1 half, which is 3 over 4. And just like what we did on the past unit, past lesson, we are going to keep things like this, okay? We don't really need to actually square the numbers because at least for the left-hand side, it can keep things a little bit better and more convenient because we can just go ahead and put the 3/4 into the perfect square. Okay, so that's the reason why we're going to keep the number as 3/4 and not 9/16 because 3/4 are pretty good. Okay, but on the right hand side, you probably would need to go ahead and square the numbers because we have to add the fractions together. And when we add fractions, we have to have a common denominator. And how do we have a common denominator? Well, we're going to multiply 8 on both numerator and denominator for the 5/2. So you've got 40/16 plus 9/16. And I'm going to need a little bit more space. So there you go. So you have 49/16. Interesting. We're going to take the square root on both sides, and we would take the plus or minus square root on the right-hand side. Do you see anything special? Well, 49 is what? 7 square. What is 16? Oh, 4 square. Wait, hold on. You're taking the square root. What is the square root of 49? That is 7. What's the square root of 16? That's 4. So you have x plus 3/4. It's equal to plus or minus 7/4. So to get x by itself, you will subtract 3/4 on both sides. So that's what you have. And then let's go ahead and explore both scenarios. So you have -3/4, okay, plus 7/4, and -3/4 minus 7/4. So you have 4/4, which is equal to 1, which is nice. And on the other hand, you have -10/4, which you will reduce it to 5/2. Okay, so -5/2. So you have 1 and -5/2 as your roots. Okay, they are going to make this statement, this equation true. So, okay, now number 4, it's okay, seemingly different than what we did for number 3. And of course, you can see that there's a fraction in the middle term. Now, is it more difficult? Yeah, sure, it's a fraction, but it's not like 10 times more difficult. A lot of times is to make sure that you are not having this fear with numbers or particularly fractions. Of course, you need to know some basic rules that we learned back in middle school when we handle fractions, like you need to have a common denominator in order to add or subtract, right? Okay. So number 4, I mean, yeah, it's a little bit more difficult, but it's not that hard. Okay. Now, next couple of videos, we'll also have some easy or harder scenarios. So we're going to take a look. Number 5 seems easy. Number 6, that could be a little bit ugly. Well, we'll see. Okay. All right. So stick around. Go to the next video.